6 spine-chilling true encounters from sinister night shifts at Target. Forbidden Horrors revealed. Jenna had read about the horrors that seeped into the darkened aisles of the local Target, but the stories were just that, stories. She arrived ready to face her new reality, glancing at the gleaming red and white facade, a beacon amongst the economic despair surrounding her small Midwest town. The fluorescent lights buzzed, casting a sterile glow over her life. Little did she know, those buzzing lights would soon flicker with hidden nightmares. As the clock struck 10 p.m., Jenna's heart began to race. It was her first night alone and the store was oddly quiet. An unsettling silence loomed like a heavy fog, interrupted only by the echo of her footsteps against the linoleum floor. Rounding the corner into the home goods aisle, she felt a chill touch her spine, sending a shiver through her core. The shadows danced just beyond her view, bending reality into something sinister. "It's just my imagination," she whispered to herself, but the words felt hollow. Then she heard it, a rustle, a whisper twisting through the aisle, like breath on her neck. The hairs on her arms stood on end. Shadows darted at the edges of her vision, twisting objects into grotesque shapes, and she began to doubt her sanity. Jenna gripped the handle of her cart, willing herself to move forward, but the aisle felt like a trap, an elongated tunnel of dread. She wasn't just surrounded by merchandise, she felt surrounded by unseen eyes watching, waiting. Before long, the uneasy tension became unbearable. Jenna strolled through the break room when her eyes landed on something peculiar, a door half hidden behind a stack of dusty, forgotten supplies. The door creaked open, revealing a shadowy basement, the air stale and thick with neglect. A dim light flickered inside. Her stomach twisted as she stepped in, revealing a haunting sight: lost uniforms, broken timecards, and photographs of cheerful faces now faded and cracked. Glancing closer, her breath caught. Some of these employees were missing from the roster. Disappearances? Her heart pounded as the fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting erratic shadows over her shoulders. That night, she found herself trapped in an unyielding grip of terror, haunted by her discovery and a store manager whose smile never reached his eyes. She felt like prey, hunted by something far darker than mere economic despair. When the other employees warned against speaking out, dismissing her fears as paranoia, she understood she was alone, a lone sentinel in a fortress filled with horror. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The clock ticked louder as she checked the grainy footage on the security monitor. She saw flashes of figures moving where they shouldn't have been, events that echoed with an unsettling choreography. Panic gripped her heart when she realized she was embroiled in a story far worse than she could have imagined. Each moment spent became a tightrope walk among unknown horrors. A low laugh echoed from the stockroom. It sent ice pouring down her spine. The manager's face loomed in her memory, with that twitch in his eye, a puppet master pulling strings in the unsettling drama of manipulation. When Jenna decided she could no longer stand it, she turned toward the glimmering exit, praying for escape. But the darkness in the aisles had thickened, swallowing her resolve. With a cold sweat glistening on her forehead, she reached for her phone to call for help. But that static was more than interference. It echoed like a lament for the lost. And then, from the shadowy depths, a chilling voice beckoned her. "You can't leave yet, Jenna." Fear paralyzed her as she stood, heart racing and breath caught, facing the unknown lurking right beyond those sliding glass doors. Jenna could hardly breathe. The voice seemed to wrap around her, winding tightly like a serpent. She felt an urge to bolt, to sprint away from that taunting sound, but her feet remained glued to the floor. The flickering lights above flickered again, plunging her into intervals of shadow where reality warped into nightmare. "Who is there?" she called out, her voice shaky. The answer was silence, thick and suffocating. She took a tentative step towards the stockroom, heart pounding like a drum. Each careful footfall was an echo of fear reverberating through the empty space. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and in a moment of desperation, she reached for it, her trembling fingers tapping the screen. NO's signal. Panic rose like bile in her throat. The store, once a familiar layout, became a maze of unknown horrors. The air smelled stale, like something rotten lurked beneath the surface. Jenna swallowed hard, glancing about for anything she could use as a weapon. A broom leaned against the shelf in the cleaning aisle, but the thought of venturing back through those unnerving shadows was daunting. And then she heard it again. The low laugh, curling around her like mist. It seeped from the stockroom, all too familiar. It was filled with malevolence, a sound not of amusement but of something far darker. Jenna stumbled back, her pulse racing. "This isn't happening," she whispered, but her words only echoed back at her. With her instincts screaming at her, she turned toward the break room. If anything could help her, it would be the security footage. Maybe she could uncover more about the mysterious happenings, more about the faces whose smiles turned sinister in the dark. As she crept through the aisles, the oppressive weight of dread hung in the air. Each aisle became a gauntlet of phantoms. Beneath the buzzing light, she caught shadows shifting just out of sight. Her eyes darted. There was something, or someone there, lurking. She squeezed through the door of the break room, feeling a fleeting sense of safety wash over her. The monitor blinked, illuminating the darkened space. Jenna hurriedly sat in front of the screen, pressing buttons, her heart racing as she quickly skimmed through recorded footage. Her hands shook as she navigated to the previous night. The grainy images revealed employees clocking in, some laughing, their faces all too alive. But something was wrong just beyond their cheerful interactions. There were flashes of blurs in the background, and the clock seemed stuck at a particular moment where it blended with strange, unexplainable occurrences. Then it hit her, one of the employees was the manager, backlit ominously. He stood in the shadows, watching. As the camera caught a faint flicker, a figure creeping toward the break room. Jenna backed away, but unfortunately, the sound of broken glass shattered the tentative stillness. An arm reached through the window, framing a night filled with horrors, fingers clawing toward her. She screamed, the sound piercing the sorrowful quiet. The damage was done. The rusted gears of horror had begun to roll. She needed to escape. With all her might, she bolted out of the break room and into the darkness of the aisles. But the laughter echoed like a twisted lullaby, following her, a sentinel in the malevolence she couldn't outrun. The lights flickered again as Jenna stumbled through the looming shelves, her breath ragged and sharp. She could still feel that presence, dark and close, as if it were weaving its way through the store. The sliding glass doors weren't just her exit. They were now an impenetrable barrier, mocking her fear. Then, in a moment of eerie calm, she stopped. The aisles had grown quiet, so unnervingly still, she thought it almost felt like it was waiting for her. "Find me, Jenna!" The voice slithered through the air again, but this time it was joined by many others, their whispers coiling around her. "What do you want from me?" she gasped, spinning around, desperate to see the source. Were they her coworkers, the ones she once laughed with? Were they lost? The store. Around her twisted with shadows, calling out to her to step further into the unfolding dread. Shivers crawled up her spine. It wasn't just the shadows that wanted answers. She felt her mind racing, trembling at the precipice of revelation and horror. The door at the back of the aisle hung ajar, beckoning her with the promise of freedom or perhaps even more secrets. Would she dare go further? As she walked toward it, the air crackled with anticipation, every heartbeat heralding impending doom. What awaited her in the darkness beyond those doors? The door creaked as Jenna stepped close. Each inch taken felt like a surrender to the unknown. It hung there like a hungry mouth, eager to swallow her whole. The whispers danced around her, intertwining with her thoughts, a cacophony that drove her further toward the threshold. With shaking hands, she pushed the door open, revealing a dimly lit storage area. Cans and boxes loomed like tombstones, casting grotesque shadows that stretched long across the floor. A single flickering bulb swayed gently above her, the light throwing the room into a confusing blend of illumination and dark. And then, the laughter erupted again from behind her, mingling with the incessant whispering. It was harsher now, like stones scraping against metal. She spun, trying to pinpoint the source, but the aisles loomed too tall, too twisted. No one was there. Her heart hammered in her chest, the fear constricting her throat as she forced herself to step inside. "Hello?" she called out, her voice a fragile echo of bravado. "Is anyone here?" The silence that followed was heavy, pressing against her ears like a weight. She took a shaky breath, summoning whatever courage she had left. She needed to know. She needed to understand what was happening to her world, to the people she once admired. Then she noticed something nestled beneath a stack of boxes, a glimmer of metal. Curious, her fingers reached down and revealed an old key, its surface rusted and cold. It felt wrong in her palm, like it had belonged to a lock long since rotted away. "What is this?" she muttered to herself, turning it over as if it might hold some secret. It was then she heard the distinct sound of footsteps. Quick. Soft. Directly behind her. Jenna whipped around, but she was alone. The room lay bare, its emptiness almost mocking her search for truth. The laughter faded, but the whispers grew louder, urging her to do something, anything. Driven by an instinct she couldn't quite explain, she approached a set of shelves lined with dusty crates. The urge to pry them open was overwhelming. With her heart racing, she shoved the first one aside and then the next. What was she searching for? In that moment, she wasn't sure. Finally, she revealed a small door embedded in the wall-'s corner. It was barely visible, almost camouflaged by the dilapidated surroundings. Panic surged within her. Could this be it? The key fit the lock. What if she opened that door and emerged into a horror beyond her imagination? With trembling hands, she glanced over her shoulder one last time. The darkness seemed alive, pulsating with energy that made her skin crawl. Jenna didn't want to seem brave, she needed to be smart. Taking a deep breath, she turned the key in the lock. It clicked, sending shocks through her body. The door swung open, a gust of cold air billowing out. She peered inside and gasped out. It wasn't another storage room. It was a narrow tunnel, its walls lined with damp concrete and fading graffiti. The darkness inside was thick and impenetrable, but she could barely make out outlines of old mannequins, their dead eyes staring back as if they held the secrets of the store. Jenna hesitated. It was a gateway, and she had no idea where it led. The laughter echoed again, but this time there was urgency in it, a promise of answers or perhaps worse, horrors. Should she enter? Leave the safety of the aisles behind? Before she could decide, the whispers began to meld into a chant, her name woven into the fabric of their words, a binding spell pulling her into the unknown. Jenna, Jenna, come to us. That call wrapped around her mind like a vine, tightening until she felt she had no choice left. With a final glance back at the flickering lights of the store, Jenna stepped into the darkened tunnel, the door slamming shut behind her with a finality that sent tremors through her spine. What awaited her in the depths? Was there anything left of the world she once knew? And what had truly happened to those who had gone before her? The tunnel swallowed her, wrapping around her like thick fog, each step echoing in the suffocating darkness. The faint scent of mold filled her nostrils, mixing with an almost metallic tang that tickled the back of her throat. Panic fomented within her. Every inch deeper felt like a betrayal of the sunlight she had just abandoned. Dim outlines flickered in the corners of her vision. Was it her imagination? Or were those shapes moving? The mannequins loomed closer now, their lifeless forms waiting for her like sentinels of despair. Jenna shivered, the cold stone beneath her feet chilling her to the core. She pressed on, driven by some force she didn't fully understand. Jenna, the whispers grew louder, melding into a distinct form, now almost melodic. Stay with us. A shiver raced down her spine as she paused. She knew she should turn back. Was this the point of no return? The walls seemed to lean in, pressing her against her own doubt, and yet she felt compelled to keep moving. The tunnel opened up into a vast chamber. It was dimly lit by an ethereal glow that seemed to pulse through the air. Shadows danced like specters, painting the cold concrete with an eerie light. Jenna gulped, her throat dry as she stepped further inside. What she saw made her heart race even faster. Tables littered with strange objects caught her eye: old photographs, cracked mirrors reflecting her fear-filled face, and forgotten toys that looked as though they had been left in a hurry. In the center stood a large pillar, around which writhed black tendrils of shadow. Jenna approached, her steps slow and calculated, as if any sudden move might awaken the darkness. Then she felt the presence. It was lurking, watching her with cold, hollow eyes. The sensation of being watched clawed at her, sending waves of dread through her. "Are you here?" she whispered, feeling absurd for speaking into the void. Jenna, there it was again, her name, sweet yet sickening, reverberating around her. The laughter echoed, now a chorus of despair. It twisted her stomach, making her want to double over. She stumbled backward, only to find a wall where she expected open space. "No!" she cried, panic rising. She was trapped. With a shaking hand, she reached for the key still clutched in her palm. The rusted metal felt warm against her skin, almost alive. Should she dare turn it again, like some kind of sick game? But what door would it unlock now? Her fingers brushed over the chapter of fading hopes and despair that had brought her here. Suddenly, the shadows began to shift. One mannequin stepped forward, no longer just a figure of plastic and cloth. Its face a pale mash of features twisted into a grin that chilled her blood. She stumbled back, nearly falling over a pile of junk. "Join us," it rasped, its voice a haunting echo of the laughter. Jenna squeezed her eyes shut, and in that moment she remembered the stories, the urban legends her friends had shared, the chilling tales of those who vanished, leaving behind only echoes of their laughter. Had they come here too? She opened her eyes, breath ragged, desperation seeping into her limbs. If those lost souls were here, then she had to fight. She could not let them drag her into that darkness. In a burst of determination, she lunged toward the pillar, the only source of light in this chilling basement of lost hopes. But the shadows tightened around her, pulling her down, whispering the stories of loss and regret until she couldn't tell where they ended and where she began. "Jenna, you're one of us now." What were they? And how could she escape? As she fought against the pull, she caught a flash of movement in the shadows, the glimmer of an eye. A shiver of fear coursed through her. Was there something more waiting in the darkness? Would she become another whispering name in the void, or could she still find her way out? Jenna's heart raced as she gripped the key tightly, eyes darting around the chamber. The shadows called, but she had questions that demanded answers. "Who are you?" she cried. The darkness buzzed around her, hinting at an answer she wasn't ready to hear. As a chill wrapped around her, she knew she was running out of time before the shadows swallowed her whole. The shadows seemed to pulse with a life of their own, wrapping around her like serpents, squeezing the air from her lungs. Jenna's breaths came in short gasps, and she could feel the coldness seep into her bones. She was no longer certain of her surroundings. The walls whispered with lost secrets, and the ground beneath her feet felt unsteady, almost like quicksand. "Please, let me go," Jenna pleaded, her voice echoing siren-like into the darkness. There was no answer, only the creeping laughter that poured from the mouths of the mannequins, reiterating her worthlessness. She willed herself to remember the key, its jagged edges digging into her palm. But what door would it open now? The thought tormented her. The answers beckoned her from the shadows, seducing her with promises of a way out. "Jenna," the voice morphed, twisting and turning through the air like smoke. It wasn't just the mannequins anymore. Faces appeared within the darkness, fading in and out like grainy old film, familiar yet twisted, eyes wide with a fear she recognized. Friends, lost in time, drawn in by the same allure. Just as the shadows threatened to consume her, a flicker caught her eye. A weak, fluttering glow pulsed from the heart of the chamber, at the base of the pillar. Jenna hesitated, wrestling with the urge to flee versus her desire to uncover the truth. Could the glow hold answers, or would it drag her deeper into despair? She propelled herself forward, battling through the encroaching darkness. The shadows clawed at her, whispering her name like a lover, intimate yet horrifying. As she reached the pillar, the lively glow revealed itself. It was a small, ornate box, intricately carved, shimmering faintly with a warm light that contrasted sharply with the oppressive darkness. Jenna reached for the box, her fingers trembling as they brushed against its surface. The moment her skin made contact, the chamber shuddered with a ripple of energy. The laughter grew silent, and the shadows pulled back, slithering into crevices like startled cockroaches. Opening the box unleashed a foul stench that filled her lungs, almost suffocating her. Inside, an array of items lay, scattered ribbons dipped in crimson, tattered photographs of smiling faces, and small fingers reaching upward as if grasping for something just out of reach. Those who came before echoed in her mind. These were remnants of what once was, lost souls intertwined with her fate. With a jolt, she recognized one of the faces among them. It was her brother, Nathan. Panic twisted her insides. How had she never noticed he was one of the missing? "Join us," the voice returned, swirling intoxicatingly around her, but it wasn't he just fabricating dread anymore. It was pleading, desperate, softening the hold of darkness around her. "No!" Jenna cried, horrified by the connection between her brother and this malevolent force. Clutching the box tightly, she dashed backward, nearly tripping over the remnants of garbage scattered throughout the chamber. The walls began to shift, morphing into fragmented images of her memories, taunting her with scenes of laughter, love, and comfort, each moment now a twisted reminder of the darkness that lay ahead. What had they turned into? And how many memories within her would she lose to this nightmare if she failed to escape? In the chaos, she felt the shadows lunging toward her, their grasp tightening around her ankles, trying to drag her back. The whispers transformed into anguished cries, drowning her in despair. "Let him go!" she screamed, spinning around to face the source of the darkness. Suddenly, the heavy weight of the key in her palm pulsed against her skin. It whispered promises of release. Could she unlock the secrets that bound her to this torment? The only way to save Nathan and herself was to confront the truth lurking in the depths of darkness. With newfound resolve, Jenna prepared to face whatever awaited her among the shadows. The air thickened with tension. Her heart raced as the time to act grew dangerously short. But just as she took a step toward the enigmatic portal of light, a pair of cold hands gripped her shoulders and spun her around. Locking her gaze with a familiar face in that moment of revelation, Jenna realized the darkness had a plan for her. But could she reclaim her freedom, or would she fall victim to its seduction like those before her? The shadows closed in once more, encroaching and hungry. Could the key unlock more than just the way out? Would it unveil what had taken her brother? The darkness waited, ready to claim its prize, but she couldn't let it win. Not without a fight. Jenna's heart hammered in her chest as she faced the familiar figure. It was Nathan, his face twisted with grotesque anguish. He looked at her, eyes wide, a reflection of the fear that gripped her. But this was not her brother. It was an echo, a shadow of the person she once knew. The resemblance was there, yet the essence was wrong, robbed by the darkness. Jenna, his voice was a ragged whisper that sent chills racing down her spine. "Help me!" The shadows writhed around them like angry serpents, and Jenna felt their presence pressing against her skin, suffocating her will. "Nathan?" she croaked, struggling to find her voice. She remembered him laughing, running in the backyard carefree. This was not the Nathan she had lost. This was a puppet, ensnared by the very malevolence she was fighting. "Join us." It slithered through the air, seductive and oppressive. She felt the pull like being dragged beneath water, helpless and panicked. "No!" Jenna shouted, clenching the box tighter. The ribbons and photographs clattered inside, rattling against one another like testaments of despair. She couldn't let go, couldn't let them take her too. "Please! You have to believe me!" Nathan pleaded, stepping closer. The shadows billowed, trying to consume him as he reached a hand toward her. The once warm grip of his touch now felt cold and clammy. The truth struck her like a lightning bolt. The key! It was their only hope. It had to unlock something more than a physical door. It had to sever the ties binding her brother to this darkness. She fumbled with the jagged key, and for a second, the room quieted. Shadows recoiled slightly as if sensing her intention. "Jenna! You can't fight it!" Nathan hissed, his voice warping, barely recognizable. The laughter returned, seeping back into the space, taunting her choices. "I want to let you take him," she screamed defiantly, spinning the key between her desperate fingers. "I'll break this curse." She scanned the chamber, desperately seeking a lock. The glowing box pulsed with a newfound energy, its flicker beckoning her closer. If it were truly a connection to Nathan, it held answers. More laughter, more torment. The mannequins returned in her peripheral vision, their sickening grins widening, feeding off her fear. But Jenna took a deep breath and stepped forward, ready to uncover whatever dark truth lay ahead. As she approached the box, its ornate carvings glimmered with more vibrancy, almost alive. She felt a warmth radiating from it, battling against the suffocating chill. She couldn't let the past box her in, she had to fight, for Nathan, for herself. The buzzing in her hand intensified as she brought the key closer to the box. "No!" Nathan's voice echoed in her head. The shadows lunged, a cacophony of tortured screams and laughter surged around her, threatening to drown the reality of her brother's face. "Let him go!" she yelled, yanking the box closer, her heart thundering in her chest. The key fit, and she turned it. A shudder ran through the space, the box trembled, and a blinding light erupted from within. Jenna stumbled back, shielded her eyes as a sinister wind howled around her. The light raced through the darkness, splintering the shadows that wanted to claim her, but they fought back, snarling and twisting, trying to reclaim what was theirs. "Jenna!" Nathan's voice was a fractured echo, battling through the ruckus. Desperation fueled her. What she didn't know yet was where this would lead or what sacrifices she would have to make. Suddenly, the light dimmed, shadows coiling back to claim their territory. It pulsated, growing darker, and then she heard it, a cry. Not from Nathan, but from something else, something far more sinister that watched from outside the threshold of the light. "What have you unleashed?" It growled through the dissonant laughter. Her heart raced. The stakes were higher than ever, and she stared into the swirling abyss. Could the key truly save her brother, or had it simply unleashed something worse in its wake? The chamber reverberated with terror, and Jenna stood trembling, forcing herself to step into the light. Because one thing was clear, she wouldn't escape without unmasking the truth. What lay beyond was a mystery waiting to unfold, and Jenna knew she had no choice but to confront it head-on. The instant Jenna stepped into the light, the air around her thickened, heavy with anticipation. She squinted, fighting against the brilliant glow that engulfed her. From the darkness beyond, a presence loomed, creeping closer, manifesting from the laughing shadows that twisted and warped into grotesque shapes. The light flickered, and what she had hoped was her salvation morphed into something ungraspable, an unpredictable churn of energy that felt both familiar and foreign. "What have you unleashed?" It echoed again, more pronounced, sending tremors up her spine. "Please, Nathan," Jenna whispered, feeling the weight of despair settle in. She reached out, her heart echoing with every frantic thud, desperate to touch something real amongst the chaos. "Help me!" Nathan's voice, now a hollow imitation of its former warmth, rang in her ears. His outstretched hand trembled, a flickering candle in a storm. The light pulsed violently, and she could almost feel its heartbeat. In that moment, the shadows behind Nathan slithered closer, tightening around him like a vice. She could see his eyes darting, reflections of the horrors that danced among the flickers, wild and chaotic. "Get away from him!" Jenna screamed, her voice fighting to cut through the dissonant laughter. She felt the heat from the box intensify, as if sensing her burst of determination. But the shadows lunged, reaching for her, slick and cold, wrapping around her ankles and dragging her closer to the floor. Memory surged, the weight of the past crashing down on her. In her mind, flashes of Sunday breakfasts, shared secrets, and brotherly shout-outs flicked by like a movie. Her heart ached, fueled by the strength of what she had lost. "I want to lose you again." With fierce resolve, she lunged toward the box, her fingers brushing against its surface. The ornate carving seemed to pulse beneath her touch, resonating with her fury. The shadows hissed, their breath a cold mist against her face, but something inside Jenna ignited a fire born not from rage, but love. Let him go! The words erupted from her throat, sharp and commanding. She gripped the key tightly, its jagged edges digging into her palm, and thrust it deeper into the box. The ground quaked. The shadows recoiled but then surged forward, their chilling presence hungry and relentless. You cannot fight what is already lost. They laughed, tearing at her sanity. Suddenly, a crack sounded, slicing through the cacophony. The box responded to her primal call, cracking open like thunder. A powerful light shot forth, blinding and brilliant, swallowing the surrounding in its purity. Jenna! No! Nathan's voice was a mere whisper against the burgeoning force, but she could sense a change in him. The shadows swirled violently, twisting and shrieking as if they were being pulled apart. Jenna strained to hold on, the light coursing through her now as if she were its vessel. With a rush of adrenaline, she felt a surge, a kind of choice forming deep within her gut. Could she channel this energy? Could she reclaim her brother? The shadows screeched, howling in pain, their taunts turning to terror. Now! Jenna shouted, thrusting the light forward, unleashing her will. The golden flash expanded, swallowing the darkness and the ugly remnants that clung to Nathan. She saw him flinch, his form flickering like a dying flame in the wind. The room shook violently, walls trembling as the darkness collapsed inward. Jenna could barely maintain her footing amidst the shockwaves, but she held her ground. Come back, Nathan! Fight with me! His eyes bore into hers, confusion before clarity dawned. I am here! He cried, defiance breaking through the falsehood encasing him. But even as hope surged, Jenna felt the encroaching dread closer than ever. What have I just unleashed? She thought, as an even deeper shadow crept nearer, formless yet palpably evil. The laughter began again, low and sinister, an echo that suggested her fight was far from over. The chamber twisted, the ground cracking beneath their feet, while Jenna's resolve hung by a thread. Stay with me, Nathan! She shouted, knowing the real battle was just beginning. A wave of fear settled upon her, their connection fragile yet illuminating a beacon in a storm. Would it be enough? As darkness pooled at her feet, Jenna took a step back. She would have to confront whatever was coming for them next. And just as the pulse of the light began to dim, the voice returned, low and malevolent. You think you can save him? What if I told you, this is just the start? A chill crept into her bones, seeds of doubt taking root. Jenna prepared herself but knew one thing, there was no turning back now. The room shuddered, and Jenna's heart raced like a wild animal in a cage. The shadows darkened as if they were rallying to a battle cry, and the air thickened with malevolence. With every flicker of light, she could see faces twisted in anguish, specters reaching out with hands of smoke. They wanted something, and she feared it was her very soul. Fight it, Nathan! Jenna urged, her voice shaking but strong. Darkness dripped like tar around her ankles, pulling her down as she struggled against the encroaching dread. Nathan's face flickered in and out of view, his once solid form now a reminder of what the shadows threatened to consume. I'm trying! He shouted, his voice a strain against the howling chaos surrounding them. Jenna could see panic pooling in his eyes, the turmoil reflecting her own turmoil, a mirror of despair and determination. Then, a sound like distant thunder echoed through the chamber, sending a jolt through the ground and into her bones. The shadows recoiled, but a cold wind now swept through the space, hinting at an even darker agenda. Jenna turned her gaze toward the source of the noise, her breath hitching as the flickering light revealed a figure, a silhouette outlined in the shadows that danced sinister and mocking around it. Did you think you could simply take what you've lost? The figure crooned, each word dripping with malice. It was a glimmer of a person, form shifting like a mirage, eyes deep pits of judgment. You play with forces you do not understand. Jenna's blood ran cold. Who are you? She demanded, her voice trembling less from fear and more from the budding realization of the true stakes. I am the whisper between worlds, the keeper of souls bound by grief. The figure's voice was haunting, melodic yet horrific, resonating deep within her core. I offer you one last chance. Release the light, and let the shadows take him. Or Jenna felt the gnawing fears seep into her mind. Or what? She dared to ask, though she feared the answer. Or I will unleash hell upon you both. The shadows surged with acknowledgement, lashing out like wild beasts tethered just under the surface. Realization dawned, unwelcome but clear. The light she had thought was salvation was also a beckoning for something far worse. No! She cried, gathering what little strength she had left, twisting her body against the grasping clutches of darkness. I won't let you have him! The shadows shrieked in pain as Jenna fought back with every fiber of her being. Perhaps it was the love she held for Nathan, the memories of laughter, of warmth, but it fueled her like a blazing inferno. We're stronger than you! She screamed, heart racing, pulse pounding like war drums. Yet doubt lingered, creeping into the edges of her resolve. The figure's laughter echoed, warping the very sound of hope. Strength? What is strength against the void? In a heartbeat, the air thickened again, swirling with malevolence as the specters leered, weaving closer. Jenna grasped Nathan's hand tighter, feeling the warmth of his skin. Was it real, or just a fading echo? Nathan, hold on! We'll end this together. But as her words left her mouth, the shadows surged forward, frothing at the edges of her vision, hungry for despair. One bold figure broke free, lunging at Jenna, and as it came closer, she felt it, the chill of the beyond. The entity crashed against the barrier of light, wailing in a cacophony of regrets and rage. The entire room echoed with disturbing energy, everything shifting dangerously now, as if reality were bending. Time is ticking, it whispered, urgency dripping from its words like poison. With the dark figure charging again, Jenna felt time slow, the world around her contorting into madness. Clarity struck her. She had to choose. Surrender and lose everything she fought for, or delve deeper into the light, risking it all against the darkness. Which path would she take? As the shadows reached for her once more, the choice hung in the air, an electrifying potential that could either save or doom them both. What awaited Jenna if she embraced the light? Would Nathan's soul emerge unscathed? Jenna's heart pounded. Time had twisted into something unrecognizable. The shifting shadows breathed down her neck, suffocating her resolve. Nathan's pale face flickered in and out like an old film reel, casting shadows across the walls. What do we do? His voice was desperate, barely a whisper against the howling chaos. Focus, Jenna shouted, the warmth of his hand anchoring her as the darkness lunged again. We have to hold on. She had no idea how long they could last. The figure stood there, its aura pulsing, waiting for her decision like a predator eyeing its prey. The shadows surged, and cold fingers of despair gripped her throat. A single thought spiraled through the turmoil. It was never just about Nathan. The darkness coiled around them, whispering intimate fears, dredging up memories she tried to lock away. Flashes of regret ignited in her mind, scenes of betrayal and loss. The promise of hopelessness wrapped tighter, squeezing her spirit. Embrace the light, she urged, shaking Nathan's arm, but doubt flickered through her veins like poison. What if this was all a trick, another seduction meant to lead them to the very edge of destruction? Don't let it take you! Nathan shouted, his voice rising amid the dark tide. The shadows took a moment, hesitating as if they could sense her wavering heart. Jenna felt their hunger sharpen, could almost taste the malevolence. In that moment, the entity took a step forward, shifting closer, its shape pulsating with a bizarre kind of glee. Choose, it hissed, breath cold and sharp like a knife. Let go, or hold tight. You have mere seconds before you're swallowed whole. Jenna clenched her teeth. Was this the end? She couldn't let it end like this. They couldn't fall to such terror. I'll never let go, Nathan! She screamed, voice hoarse from fear. Just then, the eerie quiet shattered. The shadows recoiled, a stunned silence fell as if the air itself was afraid to breathe. Jenna realized that deep within her, something was flickering. The light didn't just belong to the dark. It surged from her heart, her love for Nathan, a burning flame amid the encroaching blackness. Together! She cried, pulling Nathan into the light, routing the darkness with every ounce of hope left in her body. The room exploded with energy, light bursting forth like a sun breaking through a thunderstorm. The figure's laughter turned to a ghastly screech. Jenna felt the shadows writhe against the blazing illumination, unable to hold their ground. Foolish souls! You think you can defy the abyss? But the warmth enveloped her more tightly, and with that sensation, doubt started to peel away. The light surged, reflecting every memory of joy, every laugh, every moment shared with Nathan. They were too bright for the darkness to devour. Keep fighting, Jenna urged, her voice reclaiming strength. We are not what you want, the figure hissed, and the shadows lashed out in a final desperate effort, striking against the light with a fury. But Jenna pushed back harder. Images of Nathan's smile stood vivid against the storm of despair. Suddenly, she felt an icy grip on her ankle, familiar and soothing yet laced with anguish. A whisper dragged at the edge of her consciousness, trembling with a sense of inevitability. You cannot escape your fate, you can only delay it, no! She screamed as panic clawed at her chest. Everything trembled, shadows and light swirling in a tumultuous fight. What do you want? She demanded, fury and fear blending together into a single, desperate plea. Only what she has always owed, it echoed, a familiar voice intertwining with countless others, half-formed but unyielding. The sacrifice was never just hers to pay. Jenna froze, realization slicing through the chaos. This was bigger than her, much bigger. As the last tendrils of shadow clashed against the light, a new energy pulsed within. Jenna's mind raced, piecing together shadows of the past to stop the unfolding horror. The very essence of what she was fighting flared around her. What had she overlooked in this labyrinth of despair? Time surged forward, crumbling around them, and she clung to Nathan, sensing danger still loomed, lurking just beyond the edge of their light. Would it ever truly end? The air broke like crystal, every heartbeat pounding out an urgent rhythm as Jenna realized the battle was only beginning, and the path ahead was cloaked in an even deeper shadow. What more would she have to face? And what price was she willing to pay? The brightness coiled around Jenna, illuminating her resolve amid the struggle for Nathan's soul. Once upon a time you thought love would save you, the figure taunted, twisting the whispers of despair into a chilling melody. It hovered close, shadows stretching from its form like dark tendrils eager to root deeper into the light. Stay with me, Jenna! Don't let it win! Nathan shouted, his voice piercing through her haze of worry. She tightened her grip on him, heart racing, pulse kicking like a drum. She felt raw energy coursing through her veins, a surge of defiance blooming from fear, but the shadows clung stubbornly, refusing to bow. You have to let me go, he urged, his eyes pleading with a desperation that brought her to her knees. It's the only way to break this curse. Panic flared. No, I won't. Jenna gasped. We're fighting together. Then it hit her. The stories, the missing employees, it all traced back to choices, sacrifices made, a dark bargain struck. Through the flickering chaos, she remembered the faces amongst the shadows, lost souls bound by regret. Jenna turned to the flickering box glowing fiercely in her grasp, the embodiment of their past, and felt a spark of understanding ignite within her concentration. You were the key all along, she whispered, more to herself than anyone. If she gave the light what it craved, authentic love, not just desperate hope, it might just break the hold darkness had over Nathan. We have to confront it. She faced the figure and yelled, this is our choice. We choose love over fear. With every ounce of strength, Jenna released the energy, letting the light ripple outwards under her command. The shadows shrieked, chaos erupting with swirling darkness and the screech of those who didn't want to sever their ties. Yet Jenna stood firm. Nathan, believe in me! Together, they pushed back. A blinding beam shot across the chamber, illuminating truth resurrected from anguish, revealing that the darkness wasn't simply outside, it was ingrained in their histories, their fears. The air crackled with potent energy, a fusion of love's tenacity and the will to claim their freedom. The figure reeled, its form destabilizing as the cavern erupted with blinding light. You think this will save you? It howled, shadows slipping frantically away from the illuminating force. You will regret this defiance. We won't regret anything. Jenna shouted defiantly, determination solidifying with each second. She held tighter to Nathan, their connection pulsating like a heartbeat. What you're clinging to is nothing but a lie. The walls quaked, shadows disintegrated into fragments, whispering echoes morphing into shrieks. It felt like the ground beneath her was fighting back, almost alive with the presence of everything they had sacrificed. With one more push, the beam of light burst forth, shattering the confines of darkness. Then came the silence. The shadows hissed one last time before dissipating, curling away into nothingness, defeated by the overwhelming force of love. Jenna gasped for air, eyes stinging. She and Nathan fell to their knees as the radiant glow settled into a soft luminescence, warming the air around them. "Did we do it?" Nathan whispered, his voice low, filled with disbelief. Jenna blinked, her heart racing, and for a moment the world around them felt safer, lighter. "I think so. I think we're free." For the first time, they shared a smile, teetering on the edge of cautious hope. They started to rise together, staggering slightly as if the world had just shifted. But then, a voice slithered back, low and dark, creeping around the edges of their newfound freedom. "You may have escaped, but the shadows linger still, and the pact you broke will summon a reckoning." Jenna's heart sank. The whispers of the past still echoed like fading sirens, but they realized they had taken the first step to dismantle the hold that darkness had over them. They exchanged a determined glance. Their fight was far from over, but they wouldn't be alone anymore. They would navigate their shadows together. As they turned to leave the chamber, hand in hand, Jenna squeezed Nathan's hand, feeling the warmth between them. Fear still pulsed at the edges of their reality, but they had found the strength within the light. They shared a bond that defied what haunted them. "Let us go home," Jenna said softly, her voice steady as the glow continued to light their path forward. "I'll follow you anywhere," Nathan replied, undeterred and ready to face whatever came next as they stepped into the light of their new journey. As Jenna glanced back fleetingly, the chamber faded into nothingness, swallowed by their resolve. What awaited them would be a fight worth facing together. The darkness may have lost this round, but the battle continued. Now it's your turn. If you were captivated by this chilling journey through light and shadow, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second. Smash that like button to show support, and keep the stories coming. And make sure to flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about this wild ride. Share the experience instantly with at least 5 friends. Let's bring them along for the next adventure.